The courtroom smelled of coffee, paper, and quiet judgment. Every seat was filled. Every whisper hung heavy. At the defense table sat Marcus Hill, a young black man, 19 years old, short curls glistening under the fluorescent lights, his janitor's security uniform wrinkled from sleepless nights. His brown eyes told a story, grief, strength, and the kind of pain that doesn't need words. He didn't belong here. At least, not like this. The bailiff's voice boomed, "All rise for the Honorable Judge Harold Whitman." The man who walked in wore a black robe like it was armor, a robe that hid his prejudice but couldn't bury it. Whitman was the kind of judge who smiled at the cameras but sneered when the lights went off. He sat, glancing over the courtroom, his cold blue eyes stopping on Marcus. Well, he said with a faint chuckle, "didn't expect to see a boy like you representing yourself today." The room went still. You could hear hearts drop. Marcus's mother, Maya Johnson, sitting in the back, clenched her silver cross pendant and whispered under her breath, "Lord, give him strength." Marcus didn't flinch, didn't look away. He just said quietly, "Yes, Your Honor. I'm representing myself." The judge leaned back. "That's bold. Let's hope it's not foolish." The case was simple, or so it seemed. Marcus was accused of stealing computer parts from the tech company where he worked nights as a janitor. The same company whose cameras, conveniently, had stopped working that evening. The same company run by a man named Elias Harper. A man who had friends in high places, including Judge Whitman himself. Marcus stood alone, no lawyer, no support, just a stack of papers and the truth. The prosecutor, Linda Parks, smirked as she opened her folder. "Your Honor, the evidence clearly shows this defendant," Marcus interrupted gently. "With all due respect, ma'am, there is no evidence. Only accusations." The judge shot him a glare. "Son, you'll speak when spoken to." That word, son, burned more than the cold air. But Marcus stayed calm. He wasn't here to win a shouting match. He was here to expose something bigger. "Mr. Hill," the judge said, "you're facing felony charges. Theft from an employer. If convicted, you could spend years behind bars." Marcus nodded. "I understand, Your Honor." The judge tilted his head. "You're awfully calm for someone looking at prison time." Marcus met his gaze. "I've already been through worse." Whitman smirked. "Is that so? Where'd you learn that kind of courage? From the streets?" A few people chuckled. Marcus didn't. He reached into his bag and pulled out a folder. "No, sir," he said softly. "From my father." The judge's smile faded. Marcus opened the folder, a stack of documents, photos, and transcripts. "My father," Marcus began, voice steady, "was a police officer, Detective David Hill. He served this city for 20 years. He died last year. Shot during a corruption investigation." A hush fell over the courtroom. Even the prosecutor shifted uncomfortably. Marcus continued, "Before he died, he told me one thing. The truth will always sound like rebellion to those who built their power on lies." The judge leaned forward. "And what does that have to do with your theft case, boy?" Marcus's eyes flickered, that word again. "Boy." He took a breath. "It has everything to do with it, Your Honor. Because the same men my father was investigating work for HarperTech." The judge's expression hardened. "Careful what you're implying." "I'm not implying," Marcus said. "I'm proving." He clicked a small recorder. The courtroom speakers crackled, and then a voice filled the air. Harper's voice. "No one's gonna believe that, janitor. I've got the judge in my pocket. We'll make sure the case sticks." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Whitman's face turned pale. Marcus let the words linger, then stopped the recording. He looked up at the judge. "Recognize that voice, Your Honor?" Whitman stammered. This is inadmissible." "No, sir. It's public audio. Sent from an anonymous source, to the DA's office. Yesterday morning." The prosecutor fumbled her notes. "Your Honor, I didn't." Marcus pulled another file. "And this," he said, "is the email log showing that HarperTech's surveillance system wasn't broken. It was disabled from the inside. On your order." Whitman's jaw dropped. "You're accusing me?" Marcus cut in, voice quiet but firm. "I'm not accusing you, sir. I'm exposing you." For a long moment, the courtroom was silent, except for the sound of the judge's trembling breath. Then Marcus stepped closer. "You called me boy. But my father taught me something before he died. Real men don't need to prove power, they live truth." The judge slammed his gavel. "Bailiff, remove this." But the bailiff didn't move. Neither did the clerk. Or the prosecutor. Because a tall figure had just walked through the doors. The Chief Justice of the state. flanked by 2 federal marshals. "Judge Whitman," she said calmly, "you are hereby suspended from the bench pending investigation into allegations of corruption, bribery, and obstruction of justice." Whitman's face went white. "This is ridiculous." Marcus's voice cut through the tension. "No, sir. This is justice catching up." The marshals approached, pulling the judge's gavel from his desk. Reporters burst in. Cameras flashed. The once proud man who had mocked a kid for daring to stand up was now being led out in cuffs. As he passed Marcus, he muttered under his breath, "You think you won? You're still nothing." Marcus met his eyes. "Maybe. But at least I'm not you." A week later, news headlines exploded. Corrupt judge arrested in courtroom after young defendant exposes scandal. Janitor turns tables on system and wins. HarperTech CEO was indicted. The company's stock plummeted. And Marcus Hill? He walked free, not just legally but spiritually, because he hadn't just cleared his name. He'd cleared his father's too. Months later, Marcus stood at his father's grave. Rain fell lightly, not heavy this time, just enough to blur the skyline. He placed a folded newspaper on the tombstone. "Guess what, Dad?" he whispered. They finally listened. Behind him, Maya Johnson, his mother, placed a hand on his shoulder. "You did good, baby." He smiled faintly. "I just told the truth." She nodded. "And that's the hardest thing in this world, telling the truth when everyone's betting on your silence." But Marcus wasn't done. A local university offered him a full scholarship. Law school. The boy they mocked in court would become the man standing at the bench one day, not to judge with bias, but to balance the scales his father died protecting. In his first interview, a reporter asked him, "What kept you from giving up when the whole system was against you?" He smiled, eyes steady. "Because every time they tried to break me, I remembered one thing, the difference between power and justice. Power silences. Justice listens." The final shot would fade in slowly, Marcus walking through a courthouse hallway years later, wearing a black robe of his own. Not as a defendant, not as a victim, but as Judge Marcus Hill. He pauses outside a courtroom door, the plaque shining gold in the light, "Honorable Marcus D. Hill, Associate Justice." He takes a deep breath, opens the door and says softly, "Let's begin." The sun rose over the city, but it didn't bring warmth. Just a cold kind of light, the kind that exposes everything that hides in the dark. Marcus Hill woke up before dawn, the same way he always did, quietly, with the weight of something still unfinished pressing on his chest. The trial was over. Judge Whitman was gone. HarperTech was under investigation. But Marcus couldn't sleep. Because every victory has an echo. And his was starting to sound like a warning. He stood by his window, looking out over the cracked skyline. His mother, Maya Johnson, was already up, humming an old gospel tune while making breakfast. The smell of coffee drifted through the air, soft and grounding, like hope trying to push through the wreckage. "Morning, baby," she said, sliding a plate across the counter. "You look like you ain't slept." "I haven't," Marcus whispered. "Still thinking about the case?" He nodded. "Something's not right, Mom." She frowned. "What do you mean?" He stared at the folded newspaper on the table. The headline screamed in bold letters, "Hero Janitor Exposes Corrupt Judge, Courtroom Scandal Shocks the Nation." Underneath, a smaller line read, "HarperTech Denies Involvement in Ongoing Bribery Investigation." "They're covering something," Marcus said quietly, "and I think it has to do with Dad." The room went still. Maya set down her cup. Her eyes, tired, wise, met his. "Marcus, we've been through this. Your father's death was ruled an accident." He shook his head. "They said he died in a robbery gone wrong. But Dad was investigating HarperTech before he died. I saw the files." "Those files were sealed," she said softly. "I know. But Judge Whitman mentioned something during recess. He said, like father, like son, both of you digging in places that'll get you buried." Maya froze. Her fingers trembled against the ceramic cup. "That man, he knew something," Marcus said. "And he's not the only one." He pulled out a flash drive from his pocket. Small, black, scratched from years of wear. "I found this in Dad's old badge case." Maya's eyes widened. "Marcus, no. You shouldn't." But he was already turning toward his laptop. The screen flickered to life. The drive loaded. And then, a single encrypted folder appeared. "Project Helix, HarperTech Division." Marcus frowned. "What is this?" He tried opening it, but the files were locked behind layers of security. Then, for just a moment, a line of text flashed across the screen. "Access restricted. property of Elias Harper. Then the laptop went black. A thin trail of smoke rose from the USB port. The drive had fried itself. Maya gasped. Marcus, turn it off. He unplugged everything, heart pounding. They stared at the dark screen, the silence louder than any alarm. Someone didn't want that file to be seen. And that someone had just noticed someone was looking. That night, rain began to fall again. Soft at first, then heavier, washing through the streets like a memory repeating itself. Marcus sat alone on the porch, staring into the storm. He couldn't shake the image of his father, Detective David Hill, the man who raised him to believe that truth was worth bleeding for. The sound of tires crunching over gravel snapped him back. A car stopped outside the house. Black sedan. Tinted windows. The engine stayed running. Marcus stood, uneasy. The passenger window rolled down slowly, and a woman's voice called out. Marcus Hill? She stepped out, umbrella in hand. Late 30s, sharp suit, eyes like lightning. I'm Detective Maya Johnson, she said, flashing a badge. He blinked. Wait, my mom's name is... I know. Coincidence? She said quickly. I'm with Internal Affairs. I'm here because of your case. Marcus hesitated. Your testimony against Judge Whitman exposed a chain of corruption that goes higher than anyone expected. But I need to know, she looked him dead in the eyes. What did your father leave behind? Marcus said nothing. She sighed. We believe your father's investigation into HarperTech wasn't just about bribery. It was about something called Project Helix. Do you know what that is? Marcus shook his head slowly. Find it, she whispered. Before they do. Then she handed him a card. No name. Just a number. When he looked up again, she was gone. The sedan disappeared into the rain like a ghost vanishing between drops. Inside, the phone rang. Maya picked it up, then froze. Her hand trembled. Marcus, it's for you? He took the receiver. A voice spoke, low, mechanical, distorted. You shouldn't have plugged in that drive, Mr. Hill. Some doors stay closed for a reason. Marcus's pulse spiked. Who is this? The line crackled. Your father died protecting something he couldn't destroy. If you keep digging, you'll join him. Then click. Silence. He turned toward his mother. We have to leave. But it was too late. A loud thud hit the front door. Then another. The lock splintered. 3 figures in black stormed in, masks, gloves, guns. Get down. Maya screamed. Marcus grabbed her, diving behind the couch as gunfire shredded the walls. The lights went out. It was chaos, shadows and flashes, glass breaking, footsteps closing in. Marcus reached under the couch, grabbed his father's old revolver, a relic from his police days. He fired once. A scream echoed. Then the intruders fled. When the sirens finally wailed in the distance, it was too late. The house was wrecked. Maya's arm was bleeding. The flash drive was gone. Marcus knelt in the wreckage, trembling. They hadn't come to kill him. They'd come to erase what his father left behind. Later that night, as police swarmed the scene, Sergeant Cole Bryant, the same officer who'd once dragged Samuel Carter through the rain, walked up to Marcus. His face was grave. You stirred something big, son, he said. Who were they? Marcus asked. Bryant shook his head. No prints. No names. But they moved like pros, not street thugs. Corporate. Military. Marcus clenched his fists. Then HarperTech is still running things. The sergeant's gaze hardened. If that's true, you're in more danger than you realize. And so is anyone around you. Marcus looked toward his mother, sitting on the porch steps, wrapped in a blanket, shaking. I'm not running, he said. Not this time. Bryant sighed. Then at least don't fight blind. He slipped Marcus a folded piece of paper. It was a police file, old, water-stained, labeled, Case 4827, David Hill, closed. Marcus unfolded it. Inside was a single note in his father's handwriting. If you're reading this, it means the system failed me. Look for Evelyn Carter. She knows the truth. Marcus frowned. Evelyn Carter? Bryant nodded. Chief Justice of the state. Your father trusted her. If anyone can help you, it's her. But tread carefully, she plays both sides. As the rain eased, Marcus looked out over the flashing lights, the shattered windows, the mess his life had become. Every answer he found led to another question. Every truth he uncovered came with blood on it. The next morning he packed a small bag and drove downtown. Evelyn Carter's office sat in the high-rise courthouse. Glass, steel, and silence. He waited in the lobby, soaking wet, ignored by every passing suit until her assistant finally motioned him in. She was older, Regal, calm, with silver hair pinned neatly and eyes that could see through lies like glass. "Mr. Hill," she said softly, "I've been expecting you." Marcus froze. "You knew my father?" Her lips curved slightly. "I did. He was a good man. Brave. Too brave." He stepped closer. "He mentioned you before he died. Said you knew the truth." Evelyn sighed. "The truth, Marcus, is a dangerous thing when men like Elias Harper own the locks that keep it buried." She opened a drawer and pulled out a brown envelope. Inside was a photograph. His father standing beside a group of men in suits, holding a thick binder labeled Project Helix. "These were the last men he investigated," she said. "HarperTech's top executives. They were developing something hidden inside their tech division, something your father called the algorithm." "What kind of algorithm?" Marcus asked. "One that predicts behavior," she said. "They claim it could help law enforcement prevent crime before it happens. But your father discovered it was being used to target specific communities and alter court data." Marcus's stomach dropped. "They were rigging justice," he whispered. Evelyn nodded. "And your father was going to expose it. That's why they silenced him." A chill ran down his spine. "And Judge Whitman?" "He was one of their enforcers. A gatekeeper." Marcus took a deep breath. "So it's not over." "It never was," she said. "Your father's death was just the beginning." She handed him a key. "This opens a locker at Union Station. Whatever's inside is what your father died protecting. But if you go after it, Marcus, you'll be hunted." He pocketed the key. "Let them come." Hours later, the station was almost empty, the hum of trains echoing through hollow platforms. Marcus found the locker. His hands shook as he turned the key. Inside was a small metal case. He opened it and saw a hard drive, labeled in his father's handwriting. "Helix, Final Truth." He barely had time to breathe before the overhead lights flickered. A shadow moved behind him. Footsteps. Slow. Precise. He turned and froze. Standing there was Elias Harper himself. Perfect suit. Calm smile. Two men in black flanking him. "Mr. Hill," Harper said smoothly, "you've inherited quite a burden. Your father was brilliant, but misguided. He thought truth was worth dying for." Marcus's grip tightened around the case. "Maybe it is," he said. Harper smiled faintly. "Then perhaps you'll join him." The lights cut out. A gunshot echoed. Screams followed. When the power flickered back on, the locker was empty. Marcus Hill was gone. The camera pans down to the floor, his father's keychain lying in a puddle of blood and rainwater. And then the voiceover fades in, low and heavy. "Studio microphone, they thought it was over. But truth doesn't die, it waits. And when it wakes, the whole world shakes." If this story hit your heart, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs a reminder.